how would you diagnose Dwight Schrute and the various kind of things that push and pull him to being both a people pleaser and kind of a bully at the same time?
Do you actually want me to answer the question? I think for me to answer that question, I need to ask you one.
Okay.
Because motivation and intention matters.
Okay.
So what do you think motivated him, or what the intention was with people pleasing, but then also bullying?
I think Dwight is all about rules and hierarchies. I think, you know, when you see the Terminator and like the Terminator has options and it's like one, you know, say, fuck you, motherfucker, or say, I'll be back or whatever. He has like those options. Like Dwight is eternally seeing a list of options. And for him, a hierarchy, Michael being his boss, bosses are to be lauded, respected, revered, kissed up to. It's kind of similar to our current political situation in the United States right now, a little bit.
So.
But at the same time, inferiors he holds in disdain. And there are right ways and wrong ways of doing things. And he is there to make money and profit and be the best possible paper salesman. And whether he's liked or not liked. And ultimately, he's a Schrute above and beyond. So it's kind of loyalty not just to his family, but to the family structures and strictures that kind of motivate him. There is a larger Shroot cause.
I love that you said that. You know what he made me think of? He made me think of Jean-Paul Sartre.
Okay.
And when he talks about our willingness to surrender our freedom for structure. And so many people do that because I think it's actually an easier way to live, is to pick a structure, be it religious or political, or it really doesn't matter what kind of organization you want to believe in, and go, I'm going to abide by whatever you want me to abide by. I have made one choice and the rest I'm surrendering. Meaning I don't have to constantly be making these deliberate, authentic, thoughtful choices. I have now, by making this one choice, sort of surrendered the rest of my freedom, or so we think. And people do that with religion, but people do that with work as well. And so I see Dwight.
Well, can I throw something else in?
Yes, of course.
I think I see a lot of young contemporary people, but I think this has always been the case, doing that with just the strictures of contemporary society. Like,
Absolutely.
I'm going to be materialistic. People on TikTok want me to look great. I'm going to work on looking great. They want to be more popular, so I'm going to use social media to try and be more popular. I'm going to buy things that are easy. I'm going to have superficial conversations. I'm going to just seek kind of a social evolution that is culturally and socially acceptable. Yeah.
They chose a place where they wanted to belong. And then they decided to just do everything they needed to in order to belong. It's really that simple. And I see Dwight exactly the same way. He's like, I want to belong to this amazing paper company. I am a Shroot, which means that I work hard. There are all these prescribed ways that he needs to live his life to be the Shroot. And then that's what he did. Instead of sitting there and being like, do I like paper? Does this resonate with me? What beliefs have led to me treating, a Pam trying to this way? And I think what it does, it alleviates us from thinking, truly. And I think we see that in society all the time, where we have chosen a path so that we don't really have to think very much. And we have other people to tell us exactly what to do and how to think and how to behave and who we should become. I also think, maybe Dwight doesn't fully fall into that category, but I think that's how we alleviate our anxiety of freedom, is like choosing one path and going full force. And that's what I see that he did.
And a lot of people will do that, and then they'll have a nervous breakdown in their 20s, 30s, or 40s, or especially like 40s, 50s. That's kind of the traditional time to like, wow.
Earlier now.
I thought I wanted to be the best insurance agent and have a house on this particular cul-de-sac and have 2.4 kids and whatever. and then everything falls apart. But you're right. I think even younger now, you see people having kind of like meaning of life breakdowns at 28.
I think it's because we're accomplishing things a lot faster. I think it's nice when you have a goal that you're waiting to obtain for a really long time. Like, it's frustrating, but it's comforting because you have this dangling promise that once you accomplish it, you're going to have a life of meaning, of fulfillment. You're going to feel a certain way. You're going to be a different person. And so that drives you. I think what we're seeing is people reach these goals and then they go, shit, this meant nothing. I'm not who I thought I was. It didn't actually change the way that I viewed myself or anyone else. My relationships didn't get better. I didn't get more self-confidence. And then they realize that it's actually inherently meaningless. And so because people are sort of reaching their goals quicker and getting, like, TikTokers who are making millions, I think they're having these crises a lot sooner. Because we always assume something external is going to solve our life problems.
You can make millions on TikTok?
Yeah. Wait, what? Where have you been?
How do I do it?
I mean, I don't know
Can I
how
get in
to
on
do it.
that?
I don't even, we can start a joint TikTok if you want.
I think I'm on TikTok. Am I on TikTok? Yeah?
Okay, I'm not. I'm going to join you on TikTok because I don't use it.
You don't use it?
No.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's also a lot more pressure these days.
Yeah.
So I talk to a lot of young college kids and the pressure to get into the right law school or grad school and get the right grades and have the right internship over the summer and have the right job waiting for them upon graduation that's always kind of been there, but it's a far cry from where that was in the 90s. Maybe because there's also less opportunities to make money.
It's really competitive, but I think that also speaks to, like, even Dwight mistreating people that were beneath him. I think unless people see value in, like, you're going to progress my career, we have dehumanized one another. The amount of times I've walked into a party and someone doesn't know what I do, and there's a celebrity nearby or someone who's more obviously important, and there are many people more important than I am.
Rick Glassman.
Like Rick Glassman. And they will treat me a specific way, and it's really demeaning. And then they'll be like, oh, wait, did you do this thing? Or are you friends with Rick? And this has actually happened where women are like, is he single? Wait, let's be best friends. And then they attribute a value into, like, oh, this is what she can give me, so let me treat her like a human now. And I think that that's so disappointing. And we see this over and over again. And these are the
Or I imagine for you, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
I imagine for you, like, oh, you're a therapist. Oh, that's cool. Oh, that's cool, therapist. And then, like, she's a therapist and she has 2 million followers and she's a best-selling book and she travels the world. Like, oh, like I am.
Yeah, there's a little of that. Yeah, it's like, hey, do you want to promote this thing that I'm doing on your Instagram page? And I think that's disappointing because I think we should see inherent value in who someone is, not what they do. And we've lost that fully. And I think it is because it's so incredibly competitive. And I find that particularly in LA, we talked before starting to record, like different cities, it's like in LA, really, unless you show someone your value pretty quickly, they do not treat you the same way. And I find that really fascinating. And it's something that I do not appreciate.
Yes, get me out of here. Get me out of LA.
But like,
please.
LA, I love you and please invite me back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I think, if The Office were a drama, season 3, Dwight Schrute would have a nervous breakdown. Now, he hit some dark spots when Angela broke up with him and stuff like that. But if it was a drama, if there's a drama version of The Office, which would be pretty interesting.
You should do this.
Yeah. And then, but where somehow or other he's left out of a Schrute will or something like that, and the rug is pulled out, and everything he thought was important, he realized was just a house of cards. And then you cut to Dwight living in Greenwich Village, smoking a bong and going to open poetry nights or some way that he is completely, going to a meditation retreat or living on top of a mountain or something like that, where we get to see Dwight really reinvestigating who he is beyond being a Schrute, a farmer, and a paper salesman.
I think that would be very healthy for him. I think we would feel bad that he had a breakdown, but I also think that our society has this aversion to suffering or to questioning or to darkness, when I actually think all of these things are incredibly important and helpful. And so it's interesting that in dramas, you're like, oh no, like let's get them out of it as quickly as we can. Like we have this culture and this entertainment narrative that's like, no, this can't last too long. When in reality, I think it's the darkness that helps you see the light, as corny as it is. And I think that's when transformation occurs. We have so many studies that show no one wakes up one day and is like, I want to be a better person. Everything's good, but I can do better. So few individuals ever think that way. It's when they're in a constant state of tension or suffering or pain that they consider how they can pivot. And so I would like this for Dwight. And I think we would get to see such a more embodied version of him and potentially a freer version of him.
Yeah.
Which I think would be more interesting.
Could you imagine that Dwight coming back to Dunder Mifflin?
Oh.
And
him and Michael, would they be like just best friends? Would Michael like him more then?
I think Michael's too clueless to even care. He
Or
doesn't
notice the transition.
Yeah, he wouldn't notice that anything had changed whatsoever. But a transformed Dwight because of suffering would be really interesting.
It would be very interesting. What I'm really curious about, I know I'm not the host here, but how do you think his relationship to Angela would change?
Well, I think she operates by another set of very defined rules. I think as a Christian, and she has a certain rigidity that they match up well, you know? I don't think their marriage would last. I think there'd be a divorce.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Because he would gain freedom from the structure and she would remain very rigid. And so I think that she would probably trigger him in terms of himself pre-evolution or pre-transformation. And then she would see him as obviously irrational or irrelevant to her life. And so that it's interesting to see that if one person evolves and the other doesn't, it always leads to a break.
Is that true?
Yes. However, that break is not always obvious in terms of like they get a divorce. I think there's a lot of dead relationships without any sort of
where
labels.
one person has transformed, grown, evolved.
Yeah. Oh, do you think that one person can evolve and grow and change, the other one doesn't, and they can still have a very intimate, healthy relationship?
No, I hadn't really considered that before, but no, I don't think that that's true. Yeah.
I actually think it's the reason why a lot of relationships, and maybe we don't talk about it enough, but I think when one person evolves and really cares and the other is like, well, I entered into this relationship exactly like this, you agreed to accept me exactly like this, and they don't evolve, that usually ends with a split. Because I think the person who's growing, it's not even the fact that their partner is not growing, it's the fact that their partner might not have the growth mindset, which is an even bigger issue. And I also think in relationships, it's tough because you need to grow in the same direction. So I always talk about it, it's like you need to go in the same direction at the same speed. The probability of that is really slim. And that's why being in a successful relationship is actually quite difficult.
The Soul Boom Podcast. Subscribe now on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever else you get your stupid podcasts.